So I just recently returned from spending some time in Gaza itself, right in the front lines of the war here in Israel. I wanted to really understand what it feels like to be a soldier on the ground in this high pressure environment during this time period. So I started my day in Tel Aviv. It's the largest city in Israel, and it's very metropolitan, European styled. And I started making my way down to the Gaza Strip, which as you're moving that direction, you become so aware of the short distance between the largest city in Israel and a major war happening about an hour to an hour and a half away. It's really so close. Eventually I got to a checkpoint right outside of the strip itself. And when you get to this last heavily guarded point and you look at the road ahead, you really get that ominous feeling of what is beyond that road, what is waiting for you on the other end there. As soon as you pass the major gate, you really feel this overwhelming heaviness start to sink in. The landscape immediately starts to change. It's desolate and empty. As you continue to drive into the enclave, you start to see all the bombed and destroyed buildings on all sides. You really start to get an understanding of a campaign of war that has lasted for almost a year now. So I don't want to say exactly where I went in Gaza, but I will say that it was a major offensive point. And it was here that I met up with my friend Steve, who's part of this reserve unit, and who I've actually known from before the war. We did a lot of hiking and camping together.
So day to day, you try to have a general sense of order like you do at home, getting up in the morning, brushing your teeth. But every day is very, very dynamic. You don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. Operations are coming in all the time. Sometimes they're canceled. Sometimes you quickly prepare for a new operation.
I think one of the first things I really started to understand about being in Gaza is what I can only describe as a certain kind of claustrophobia. Bombed out buildings and tunnel networks everywhere. This is a war that is being fought in small, dark places, oftentimes underground. When you realize just how many entrances there are to these tunnel systems, you start to really get Hamas can pop up from any direction, start firing, and then pop back down into their tunnels. Every time you step out of a building, you are possibly in extreme danger. This means you often have soldiers huddled up in bombed out buildings with power that's fluctuating on and off from generators that are always losing steam, no running water.
The tour of the best bathroom in Gaza. Follow me.
The bathrooms usually consist of an area with a chair that has a hole kind of cut out of the middle of it.
2-3 months ago, one guy was shitting in a roof and sniper shot him. This place is dangerous everywhere where you go.
So most of the people don't have phones in here. Some of the commanders do. But in general, between newspapers, playing cards, lots of backgammon and chess that people are playing and just talking, kind of going back to the things that we used to do. And that's why, the people with whom you serve here usually end up becoming your family for life, because you don't have the other distractions around you. And what you're going through with them, the way you process that, the way you speak all the time, it really builds special relationships for your entire life. There's also, just a lot of boredom. As much as we try to have a routine, it's kind of the opposite of routine. Sometimes your morning starts at 2 a.m. Sometimes it'll start at 9 a.m, depending what your job is, depending where you are in the rotation. So you sleep at kind of abnormal hours in definitely what are considered abnormal conditions. And within that, you try and build some sense of normalcy.
Pretty soon, an armored personnel carrier, known as an APC, came kind of rumbling in to pick me up and bring me over to these front lines. So pretty quickly, I'm crammed into this vehicle with a group of other soldiers.
Now we're only going about a half kilometer, so about 500 meters. And what we're going to is where a few companies are running different operations in order to push the corridor further to the north.
As soon as it starts to move, I start to really feel that claustrophobic sort of tight feeling because you can't see out of the vehicle. And the only light that you're getting is from this skylight above that has dust just pouring in. It starts to feel like a dust storm inside the vehicle, and you're coughing and it's hard to breathe. But I think what struck me the most was that despite that this vehicle is so loud as it rumbles through, all of the soldiers were so quiet. Nobody's speaking to each other as they quietly sit there, waiting pensively, because you know that you're a very loud target moving through a war zone. We arrive and immediately we bolt into a building because you really can't be in the open very long. There's snipers all around the area, and there's been issues in the past, and I really didn't want to be another statistic in that sense. I think it was about here where I realized I truly am on the front line, and there's very little shielding me from the roughly 800 or 1,000 Hamas-strong army just across the way.
With the binoculars, I look for snipers, enemy observers. You can pretty much focus onto buildings and windows, but the enemy knows how to do this stuff also, so it's kind of a battle brain.
The element of surprise is much greater on their part. The enemy has learned what we do. They're observing us from the area that you saw out there. You know, you have about 800 operatives there, and they're working together. They have observation equipment, and this is their home territory. They're waiting for us to make even the slightest mistake, and through that, they take advantage. And they, in their mind, they have all the time in the world. And so you see, as much as there's quote unquote less action in front of us on a daily basis, with the element of surprise, it's created kind of, you know, a lot more suspense in what we're doing, knowing that this eerie quietness could explode on you at any point.
I have a PhD from the Hebrew University in International Relations, from Paris, France. Let's say that, you know, I came with a certain vision of what my life in Israel would be. There were some moments or experiences that I went through in the last month that I didn't think about, but I guess it's part of the Israeli dream now. And we know also that we are coming back to a country that is still divided and still hurting, and in a certain way being isolated here in the middle of Gaza is a good protection against all these hard feelings that are important now and like very strong in the Israeli society right now.
It's very intense, very intense. I mean, it's not about causing as much destruction as we can. We're trying to avoid it, but sometimes I feel that we don't have any other alternative. We barely see civilian population in here. First round, we saw a lot of them. It was heartbreaking, really. I mean, seeing all the people going from Gaza City down north, refugees, really. I mean, it's hard to see that. I'm hoping for the people of Gaza also that this situation will end.
A little while later, I found myself huddled up on a rooftop next to a group of soldiers that were flying surveillance drones nearby. And I was told that I had to keep crouching down very low in this place because if you move just a few inches too high up, you're right in the line of sight of snipers that are in the area.
The entire situation, even though I'll probably feel this way my entire life, is just completely heartbreaking from so many angles. I mean, just the whole 11 months are a lifetime of tragedies.
I think our families aren't happy we're here, but they understand why we're here. You know, you can't shed much of a positive light on a war. This is Israel defending itself and Hamas abiding by the ideology.
You fight for your home. You see your home. In the night, you see the light of Israel. And you remember why you're here.
And many of these reservists will spend maybe a week or two here in Gaza and then go home for a weekend. And then they'll come back into Gaza. And so that sort of whiplash approach of going back and forth and having to shift your entire mindset from army life to civilian life and then back really does start to take a toll on them. This is the kinds of things I think we're going to hear more about in the future as the trauma and the better understanding of how this war was waged becomes more clear. I want to end on a slightly interesting note, which was that how many stray dogs I noticed in the area, and also stray cats just kind of lounging about. Mostly, though, a lot of little puppies that have been born throughout this conflict. It's a real reminder that even here, life nonetheless goes on.